Flex spending account. A legal disclaimer we put at the beginning of all of our presentations. This information is for general and education use only, not intended to substitute for professional legal clinical advice. We try to keep our information as accurate and timely as possible, but make no promises and guarantees it works for your local unique situation. Course objectives, the students will be able to verbalize what exactly is a flex spending account. They'll be able to talk about the 4 different types of spending accounts available, the limits, the grace periods that come with the regulations around flex spending accounts, and then they'll be able to verbalize the account eligibility list, the things that you can actually use a flex spending account for. So this is an important topic because there's many employees that contribute to a pre-tax basis account that you can use for qualified, typically medical expenses. There's health savings accounts, and then there's flex spending accounts. There are differences between the two. I personally am biased towards a health savings account versus a flex spending. But you have to have a high deductible insurance plan. So if you have medical expenses, you have issues, and you have a low deductible plan, and every year the rules change on what that qualification level is. But if you can't have a health savings account because you don't have a high deductible insurance plan, the flex spending account is your second next best thing. You can put money into it. It's a use it or lose it kind of thing. Like, you estimate to the best of your ability putting this money in, and then by the end of the year, you have to quickly use it. This is why people will buy a bunch of Band-Aids and a bunch of random medical stuff at the store, because that money doesn't roll over. So if you put $500 and $1,000 in, and you are super healthy and don't have any bills and copays that you anticipated you were going to have that year, people are finding random things to stockpile on that are medically approved to use that money. Versus a health savings account, it rolls over. It's a bank account. You have more autonomy over it. If it's a flex spending account, typically it's owned by your employee, and then you have to do paperwork and forms to get approved. You have to give them all the receipts. And versus a health savings account, you just take the money out and keep your receipts if you're ever that audited situation by the government, which I have not seen any cases of a health savings account actually being audited. So a flex spending account just has a little more rules and steps. You know me, when I've talked many times before, the more I can have autonomy over my own money and not 20 hoops of approval and criteria and things to do with it, I'm happier. So a flex spending account is owned by your employer. They could have a match program. They can contribute right to it. But if you don't use it, they get to keep the money and it doesn't roll over back to you. So every company is different. Some offer it, some don't. If you have a high deductible plan, I encourage people to do the health savings account. And then if you have a low deductible plan, to do the flex spending. So what exactly is it? It's a tax-exempt account for out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. So your copays, your deductibles, you need medical supplies, you have to have surgery, you need physical therapy, non-covered services like chiropractors and things. You just have to look at the approved list that they count. I've had a lot of people say, oh, I used my health savings account and my flex spending account to pay my midwife, and you're in a state where midwives aren't licensed. You have to be very, very careful, because it does say to pay for a medical licensed care provider. Like, there is a list and rule. So I'm always stressing to people, just because she's a midwife, and yes, she does an amazing job, but she's not a licensed midwife in the state, we have to think of federal regulations. They put this as medical practitioners, and they have a list of licensed approved medical practitioners. So I always stress to people in those situations, and especially as midwives on the other side, if you are a non-licensed midwife, you can accept payments from your patients however you want, but I always give a disclaimer, like, if they're paying you with an HSA and FSA and you're in a state where you're not licensed as a midwife, they could take a potential risk of being audited later. So I feel morally like I have to have a good discussion with them. But how people pay for you, whether it's credit cards, loans from grandma, flex spending, HSA, is their business. They're the ones that's going to get in trouble for not using the money appropriately. And then there is even an expansion. The FSA is now being able to use for childcare, dependent adult services. That's a new addition. It used to just be medical expenses. So these things change all the time, and that's why I always stress, like, I don't want you to memorize every rule and every reg. I want you to understand the tools, and then hire a lawyer, an accountant, a financial planner, the people that live and breathe all this stuff and keep up with the trends and the rules every year. There's 4 types of flex spending accounts out there. As of 2025, there's a dependent care flex spending account. So it's a dependent care reimbursement account, DCRA, and it's used only for a dependent person. So daycare, home care services, medical supplies to take care of them, incontinent pads, sheets, like Foley catheters, cleaning supplies, whatever you have to do to take care of that elderly person or a preschool child at home, you can use this type of bucket for it. A healthcare FSA, which is what I'm much more familiar with, the other ones are newer buckets. It's for medical, so vision, dental, glasses, tooth stuff, non-covered services, copays, deductibles, and there is a list of non-qualified purposes, so you got to be super careful. I've honestly never seen any cases of people getting audited, but that doesn't mean in the future it won't happen. Limited purpose FSA is when it's used for health savings account. It can be dental, vision. There's more specific narrowed purpose. So a lot of times the FSA rules are determined by your employer, and they determine which bucket they're going to offer as a program and what they'll contribute to and what is available. You can't just go out and create your own flex spending account like you can an HSA. So it's an employer driven account, and they get to determine which type of flex spending account they want to offer to their employees. Post-deductibles FSAs, this is the IRS allows a minimum deductible amount. So they're funds used for medical expenses if the minimum deductible has already been achieved. So there's certain rules that you sometimes can use it right away, even if your deductible is not met. Those premiums, some people have $1,000 deductibles, some have $10,000 deductibles. So there's certain rules for each bucket. And so I always stress to people, flex spending accounts aren't all made the same. It has the power in your employer, not the employee. A health savings account is yours. You own it. It rolls over. There's some really cool strategies to do with health savings accounts. We talk into other things and other sections, but a flex spending account is just more rigid. And if that's the only thing your employer offers, but as a midwife and a business owner, you can choose to have insurance for your employees, to have it for you. You can choose to have a flex spending account. You can choose to have an HSA. You have a far more autonomy over yourself in the work. So there's limits and grace periods for flex spending accounts. They have to be used in the plan year. Most of the plans end December 31st, but there are a few. If their calendar year is in a different setup in October and the end of July, you have to know that. Sometimes you can get a grace period of allowing a small amount to roll over. That's a newer concept. It used to be really firm. If you didn't use it, you lose it kind of attitude, but I'm always hesitant if someone maxes it out and puts $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 into it and it never gets used. That's a lot of Band-Aids to buy, and then you just lose that money. So I always stress it's kind of a risky thing that you don't want to put too much, but then you don't want to put too little. Versus an HSA, you max it out. You can put it in one lump sum at the beginning of the year, the end of the year. You can do a little bit over time. It rolls over. It can be used for medical expenses forever. There's just a big difference between an HSA and an FSA. So a flex spending account's eligibility test, it's a purchase of healthcare products over the counter, doctor's visits, medications, dental, vision, first aid supplies, supplements, things like that, eyeglasses. And I always stress, healthcare products, doctor visits, you can count midwives if they're licensed, nurse practitioners. You just have to be careful. You can't, because you would think of it this way. If you chose an unlicensed care provider and you got audited, they have no way to defend that they actually are legit healthcare providers. And your mom could say she's a midwife, your sister, I'm not saying she would, but you're just paying someone else and trying to cut the corner of savings taxes. They can't defend that. So they have to be really careful with these rules. And so just as an overall conclusion, a flex spending account it's owned and ran by the employer, the company, and it is something that employees have access to, whether it's a match program, they put money into it, you put money into it, but there's very specific rules to it of what it can be used for. It doesn't roll over. There's a lot of taxes that you could get if you don't use it appropriately, and penalties and fees, but it's a cool bucket. It's money pre-tax before your income, and you can use it for medical expenses without taxes. So you don't have federal taxes, state taxes, Medicare, Social Security, FICA, all out of it. So it is a cool bucket. I mean, I don't want you to pay for medical expenses with your own hard-earned money after income, but my preference would be a health savings account. And if that isn't an option for you because you don't have a high deductible plan, the flex spending account is your next best thing.